No one knows the real you. Instead, a version of you exists in the minds of every person aware of your existence. These versions are all different from each other, sometimes drastically, sometimes subtly, depending on that person's relationship and experience with you. Think of the version of you that is the son or daughter to your parents, versus the version of you that is a student to your teacher or professor, or the version of you that is the lover to your significant other. Which of these is the real you? Which one is even closest to the real you? It might seem like an obvious question you could answer yourself, as surely whichever version of you, perhaps the lover, feels the most natural for you to presume is at least close to your true self. But that would require our own intimate knowledge of ourselves to always be the most accurate. We've all been in situations where we see someone woefully ignorant of who they really are and how others perceive them. Sinners who swear themselves saints, monsters convinced of their heroism, fools who think themselves the brightest minds of their era. Everyone around them observes them to be one way, but meanwhile, throughout their entire life, they will be convinced that no one knows the real them, that they are misunderstood, the heroes of their own tragic tales. The difficult part then is trying to picture ourselves that way, that we, too, all have glaring flaws or problems apparent to everyone around us, but that we ourselves are ignorant to. This isn't to suggest that you should always accept others' perspectives over your own, but that all perspectives are equally limited regardless of who it is. Plato's cave provides a useful allegory for understanding this. The speedrunner void-pilled variant of it is that there's a group of people that have always existed trapped in a cave, bound in such a way that they cannot look away from the cave walls. As the days, months, and years go by, these people are convinced that the shadows on the cave wall cast by a fire behind them is true reality. One day, a member escapes the cave, sees the outside world for what it is, and finds it hopelessly overwhelming. They return to the cave to explain the real world to the others, but they cannot even begin to grasp the concepts talked about, let alone believe them. The language they all speak is meant only to conceptualize their shadow cave reality, not the real world beyond it, and he cannot even begin to truly describe it to them. Our minds are this cave. While it looks like we perceive the real world, in reality, all we see is our brain's interpretation of reality, and not reality itself. And this interpretation of the world wasn't even designed for the specific task of interpreting things as they truly are necessarily, but to interpret things in a way that maximizes our chances of survival and reproduction to further life's own agenda. So we have no way to grasp abstract reality outside of our own limited human perspectives. One method of ours around this is numerical superiority. How many humans believe what? What are the odds, after all, that hundreds of millions or even billions of humans are all collectively wrong about reality? However, it's not like each individual person is independently crafting an image of reality in their minds and then observing it to mesh it up with everyone else's mental image of reality. Our own perception is heavily influenced by the society around us as we constantly reinforce each other's beliefs. Wars of ideology, often some of the most bloody in human conflict, are what happens when two incongruent and incompatible versions of reality meet up to resolve their differences as to which ideology is correct. Hundreds of millions of humans have all believed in blatantly incorrect information throughout history. Imagine you're questioning the existence of Earth as the center of the galaxy, but have your existential fears alleviated by nearly every other living person on the planet all agreeing that it is. To say that a reality is more likely to be correct simply because so many people at one time believed it to be so is the same trap we've all fallen into time and time again as a species throughout history. But what to do then? Do we just collectively treat psychosis-driven conspiracy theory as equal in likelihood to peer-reviewed studies in terms of being accurate reflections of reality? I turn to quantum mechanics for this. Don't worry, this isn't going wherever you think it is, but basically, while we'll never know our true selves or reality, we can do our best to make an educated guess. That's what quantum mathematics is, really. A really good educated guess about where a particle is at any given moment. Everything about it is based on not being able to get a true measurement without disrupting the particle in the first place, and so coming up with a mathematical solution to get as close as possible to a true measurement without actually measuring anything. So too can this be applied to both our true selves and abstract reality. While I can never be exactly sure what or who I truly am because of my limited perspective as an individual, I'm quite confident based upon all my life experience, knowledge, and interactions that I am not, in fact, a cat. I'm also not a tree, a rock, or a bird. I can't pinpoint who I truly am exactly, just like I can't pinpoint where a particle is exactly in quantum mechanics. but I can do my best to use my knowledge, intelligence, and provided resources available to make the best educated guess and dramatically narrow down the possibilities as best I can. It's not perfect by any means, but it'll still make us vastly more self-aware of our real selves overall, compared to the common habit of creating an idealistic version of ourselves in our mind. This is the person we check ourselves against to make sure we're being who we think we are or want to be. But this person is really just a mental construct we created that roughly resembles us. It's important that you have some idea of who you really are, not for moralistic reasons, but for personal growth and gain. If you go out in pursuit of what you think you want based on a warped idealistic view of who you are, you'll only find disappointment. And the correct answer in this instance wouldn't even be obvious to you. You'd instead just try to find another thing to make your perceived version of yourself happy, and continue this cycle ad nauseum as you forever dedicate yourself to the pursuit of happiness, and just the pursuit. Instead, if you want to get the best educated guess on what you truly want and will really make you happy when you get it, listen to your Jungian shadow. Whatever your shadow desires is what you truly want, one way or another, though depending on the shadow in question, its desires may first need to be distilled or diluted. You don't have to act out or fulfill your shadow's want as envisioned either. Instead, you can use them as a guideline for what you really want, rather than what you think you want or wish you wanted. It's also important that you have some idea of who others really are too. We as social creatures know well by now that most everyone we come across will be putting on a front for us in some way or the other, just as we do ourselves. But it's also important to know that even beneath that front, the person is very likely to be just as unaware of their true self as anyone else. That means, just like you, the things they tell themselves that they want could be based in falsehood, and they could actually have very little idea. Their shadow, which holds the key to their desire, helplessly repressed and unanswered by them. It can be useful then, in such instances, to try to figure out what truly motivates this person, not by what they say or the front they present, but the aspects of their shadow that leak out and betray their true wants and intentions. So yeah, this is my first video on a non-gaming topic like this. Let me know what you think, since I'd like to maybe do more of these videos where I cover a philosophical or thought-provoking topic in the future, and would love some feedback. As always, thanks for tuning in. This is YT-voidhunt, signing out.